If you had been born in the Stone Age, how long do you think you would have lived? 20 years? 30 years? For decades, one statistic has shaped our image of prehistoric life. The claim that Stone Age humans lived an average of only 25 to 30 years. It is repeated in books, documentaries, and classrooms around the world. But what if that number is deeply misleading? What if many hunter-gatherers actually survived into their 50s and 60s? And what if the oldest members of prehistoric communities played a crucial role in humanity's rise? To find the answer, we must travel back roughly 40,000 years. Europe is locked in the grip of the Ice Age. Vast grasslands stretch beneath a cold gray sky. Herds of reindeer move across the horizon while freezing winds sweep over the open plains. In a small camp of Homo sapiens, families gather around the remains of a morning fire. Children play nearby. Young hunters prepare their stone-tipped spears. But among them are people rarely shown in popular depictions of prehistory. Older men and women whose bodies carry the marks of decades spent surviving one of the harshest environments humans have ever faced. For a long time, scientists assumed such individuals were extremely rare. After all, if the average lifespan was only 30 years, how could many people ever reach old age? Yet modern archaeology has begun to tell a different story. By studying ancient skeletons discovered across Europe and Western Asia, researchers have found evidence that some prehistoric humans lived far longer than previously believed. Wear patterns on teeth, changes in bone structure, and other biological markers suggest that certain individuals reached ages comparable to 50 or even 60 years old today. For people living without medicine, hospitals, or modern technology, that is a remarkable finding. So where did the famous number come from? The answer lies in a misunderstanding of what average life expectancy actually means. In Stone Age societies, many children died before reaching adulthood. Disease, accidents, hunger, and harsh environmental conditions claimed countless young lives. These early deaths dramatically lowered the average lifespan of the entire population. But for those who survived childhood, the chances of living much longer increased significantly. In other words, a low average lifespan did not necessarily mean adults were dying at 30. This realization has changed how anthropologists view prehistoric communities. Paleoanthropologist Chris Stringer and other researchers have argued that understanding ancient life requires looking beyond simple averages. We must ask who survived, who died young, and why. Suddenly, the Stone Age begins to look less like a world of constant early death and more like a society where experience could accumulate across generations. One discovery illustrates this perfectly. In Shanidar Cave, located in present-day Iraq, archaeologists uncovered the remains of a Neanderthal man who had suffered severe injuries, including disabilities that would have made daily survival extremely difficult. Yet he lived for years after those injuries occurred. His survival suggests something extraordinary. Other members of his community cared for him. They shared food, offered protection, and helped him endure. Far from being ruthless, survivors concerned only with strength, prehistoric humans may have depended on cooperation and social bonds much more than we once imagined. And that raises a fascinating question. If some Stone Age humans were able to reach old age, how did they survive in a world filled with predators, disease, freezing winters, and constant uncertainty? What allowed certain individuals to live long enough to become the keepers of knowledge, memory, and experience? To answer that, we need to step inside the daily lives of the people who spent thousands of years mastering the art of survival. Imagine waking up 20,000 years ago. There is no alarm clock, no warm house, and no certainty that you will survive the day ahead. As the first light of dawn spreads across the Ice Age landscape, a small hunter-gatherer camp begins to stir. Young hunters inspect their stone-tipped spears, while women prepare to search for edible roots, berries, and plants hidden across the landscape. Children gather around the remains of the night's fire, but among them sits someone whose role may be more important than any hunter in the camp, an elder who has survived decades in one of the harshest environments humans have ever known. His body is slower now, marked by years of hardship, but his memory contains something invaluable. He knows where water can still be found during dry seasons. He remembers migration routes followed by animal herds years before. He recognizes the warning signs of dangerous weather long before anyone else. In a world without maps, writing, or recorded history, knowledge is the most valuable resource a community can possess. This is why many anthropologists believe older individuals may have played a crucial role in the success of Homo sapiens. Archaeologist Stephen Mythen has argued that the accumulation of knowledge across generations may have been one of humanity's greatest advantages. Every additional year of life meant more observations, more experience, and more survival strategies passed on to younger generations. But how do we know these older individuals truly existed? Surprisingly, one of the answers comes from prehistoric teeth. By studying wear patterns and age related changes in thousands of ancient skeletons, archaeologists discovered that later Stone Age populations contained more older adults than previously assumed. This may seem like a small detail, but its consequences were enormous. For perhaps the first time in human history, multiple generations could regularly live together. Children were not learning only from their parents, but also from grandparents who had survived 50 or 60 years of changing climates, dangerous hunts, and environmental challenges. Knowledge no longer disappeared as quickly as before. It accumulated, expanded, and became a powerful tool for survival. Yet life during the Stone Age remained extraordinarily dangerous. Every hunt carried risks. A broken bone could become fatal. A deep cut could lead to infection. Entire communities could face starvation if animal migrations shifted unexpectedly. So, what allowed some people to survive far longer than others? Archaeological evidence suggests that prehistoric humans were remarkably healthy and physically active. Ancient skeletons often reveal strong bones, powerful muscle attachments, and signs of constant movement throughout life. Researchers believe the average hunter-gatherer may have been far more active than most people today. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham has also highlighted the importance of fire and cooking in human evolution. Cooked food provided more usable energy, improved nutrition, and reduced the dangers associated with consuming raw food. What seems like a simple innovation may have significantly improved health and survival over thousands of years. As darkness falls across the Ice Age plains, families gather once again around the warmth of a fire. The day's hunt is over. Children listen as older members of the group tell stories of harsh winters, dangerous predators, and distant lands visited long ago. These stories are not merely entertainment. They are lessons, warnings, and survival guides passed from one generation to the next. Then, archaeology reveals another surprising discovery. At multiple prehistoric sites across Europe and the Middle East, scientists have found individuals who survived severe injuries that should have left them unable to hunt or travel effectively. Some had broken limbs. Others suffered long-term disabilities. Yet they continued living for years. Their survival suggests something remarkable. They were not abandoned. They were cared for. Communities shared food, protection, and support with vulnerable members. This challenges the popular image of Stone Age life as a brutal world where only the strongest survived. Instead, the evidence points toward cooperation as one of humanity's greatest strengths. Anthropologist Pat Shipman has argued that our ability to work together may have been just as important as intelligence or physical skill. And yet one question still remains. If many individuals could reach old age and benefit from cooperation, why was average life expectancy still so low? What dangers continued to claim so many lives before old age could be reached? To answer that question, we must now explore the darker side of prehistoric life, where hunger, disease, extreme climate, and death remained constant companions in humanity's longest struggle for survival. If there was one thing more dangerous than old age in the Stone Age, it was childhood. The greatest threat facing our ancestors was not growing old but surviving long enough to get there. Behind every elder sharing wisdom beside a campfire were countless lives that ended far too soon. In the prehistoric world, death was never a distant event waiting at the end of life. It was a constant presence from the very beginning. A simple infection, a severe winter, a hunting accident, or a period of food shortage could prove fatal. Many children never reached adulthood, and this harsh reality is the key to understanding one of the biggest misconceptions about Stone Age lifespan. The famous average of 25 to 30 years does not mean most adults died at that age. Instead, it reflects the enormous number of deaths that occurred during childhood. Once an individual survived those dangerous early years, the odds of living for several more decades increased dramatically. Yet, surviving childhood did not guarantee safety. Nature itself remained a relentless adversary. During the coldest phases of the last ice age, temperatures across large parts of Europe dropped to levels difficult to imagine today. Massive ice sheets covered vast regions of the continent, animal populations shifted unpredictably, and food resources could disappear with little warning. Archaeologist Brian Fagan has described these climatic challenges as some of the greatest survival tests humanity ever faced. Entire communities were forced to adapt or perish. And yet this is where the story becomes remarkable. Rather than disappearing, Homo sapiens endured. Humans learned to follow migrating herds across immense distances. They developed better clothing, more efficient tools, and increasingly sophisticated survival strategies. Every challenge forced innovation. Every environmental crisis rewarded those capable of learning and adapting. This ability to respond to change may have become one of humanity's defining traits. Archaeological evidence reveals that Stone Age technology gradually improved over thousands of years. Stone tools became more refined, hunting techniques became more effective, and knowledge accumulated from generation to generation. Such progress could not occur if experience vanished with every death. It required individuals who lived long enough to teach others, preserve lessons, and pass valuable information to younger members of the community. In many ways, the existence of older adults may have accelerated the development of human culture itself. But growing old in the Stone Age came at a price. Ancient skeletons frequently reveal signs of arthritis, worn joints, spinal damage, and injuries accumulated through decades of physically demanding work. Survival left permanent marks on the body, yet many elders continued contributing to their communities despite these hardships. Their value was measured not by physical strength, but by the knowledge they carried. Modern researchers, such as Rebecca Ragg Sykes, have emphasized that prehistoric societies were likely far more cooperative and socially complex than popular stereotypes suggest. Evidence from archaeological sites repeatedly shows that injured, disabled, and vulnerable individuals were often cared for rather than abandoned. These discoveries reveal something profoundly important about human evolution. Our success was not built solely on intelligence or strength. It was built on cooperation. The willingness to help one another may have been one of the greatest survival tools our species ever developed. And perhaps that leads to the most important lesson of all. When we ask how long Stone Age humans lived, we are asking the wrong question. The more meaningful question is how they survived at all. For more than 95% of human history, our ancestors lived as hunter-gatherers in a world filled with uncertainty, danger, and hardship. Yet, from those difficult conditions emerged the traits that still define us today: resilience, adaptability, curiosity, and the ability to learn from one another. The truth about Stone Age lifespan is not that people simply died young. It is that countless individuals overcame extraordinary challenges to live long enough to become the keepers of memory, experience, and knowledge. They were the first teachers, the first storytellers, and perhaps the first grandparents whose wisdom helped shape the future of our species. So the next time you hear that Stone Age humans only lived to 30, remember that the number tells only part of the story. Beneath the statistics lies a far more fascinating reality, one of survival against overwhelming odds. And it raises a final question. If you were suddenly transported back to the Stone Age with all the knowledge you have today, but none of the technology, do you think you would survive long enough to become one of those elders whose stories are remembered by the next generation?